And I'm pleased to be joined today by the former Secretary of State for Ohio, who's also on the board of an international elections organization, to dive into this push for all mail ballot elections across the country. Mr. Ken Blackwell joins us here, Jimmy at the Crossroads. Sir, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Hey, Jimmy, it's good to be with you.
Let's dive right into this topic of what I think both of us would agree is a rush to mail ballot elections. Now, we'll talk about the viability of vote by mail specifically in a more general context in a few moments, because I don't know if we may differ on that. I'm not opposed to mail ballots. I live in Colorado. I think it's worked pretty well here overall in our state, although we absolutely need to be buttoning up voter ID requirements. But what really concerns me that I don't think people are thinking about is the fact that there is a rush here. In Colorado, as with Oregon and Washington, we're the first three states that implemented it. Utah and Hawaii are the two additional ones that have vote by mail statewide now because of county by county expansions. But in our experiences, it took a decade or more to build up to a point where you could actually functionally carry out vote by mail elections. And I don't understand why we're seeing such a rush when a lot of states are just not even close to being equipped now, Ken Blackwell.
As I crisscross the country over the 30-odd years that I've been involved in elections other than those that I've been involved in personally, one of the things, there's a simple concept called the chain of custody. In in-person balloting, in Ohio, for instance, you have two Democrats, two Republicans on county boards of elections. We have 88 counties constructed that way. We have in-person precinct voting. Neighbors and church members and family members all can eyeball the process. There's a great transparency, and that builds voter confidence in the result. There are double lock systems that protect the system from the locks from being picked and manipulated and exploited by those who want to do things that are untoward and fraudulent. Therefore, the question becomes, with this mad rush, without the preparation that you're talking about, and a total collapse of the federalist system, because we have one national election day, but we have 50 state election systems managed at the state and local level. And it's that diversity that actually protects us against both internal and external evildoers and wrongdoers who would like to manipulate the outcome. So, Jimmy, look, the reality is this. Those states that have in-person voting, there's no reason for us to have that practice sidelined in this mad dash towards a system that, as you just mentioned, if you just implement it right away, won't have the safeguards, won't have the chain of custody that ultimately will build public confidence in the result that we have on election day.
No, I think that's such a series of important points, Ken Blackwell. And I would also add, I'll quote for a moment from my own op-ed in the Washington Examiner on Friday, where I note that electronic poll books and accurate databases must be properly generated with verifiable voter signatures. You also need to keep in mind that voting centers and ballot counting locations need to have strong broadband connectivity and a system that can handle the load. You need to make sure election judges are adequately trained, thoroughly understand how to adapt to the system. As you point out, a one-size-fits-all approach is doomed to fail. And not only that, in talking with experts here in Colorado, I've noted that there are only a handful, a very small handful, of ballot printing companies across the country. Remember how Democrats were all worried of states competing against one another for ventilators or for N95 masks? Now, it never really ended up happening the way they were projecting, but they were worried about that. That's what we're going to have if you force a vote-by-mail system across the country. They're going to become the new ventilators because printers, there aren't enough to handle the load.
Well, you're absolutely right. And those that are now advocating this wholesale thrust into all mail voting or trying to exploit and foment public fear. And the reality is that we are on a path of mitigating the spread of this virus. We, in fact, have to have an economy that is robust enough to take advantage of the genius of the American people and the private sector to create the masks, the ventilators, the other health equipment. And we have to pull on the fact that historically, the American people have not tucked their tails and run from challenges, but we've taken challenges head on. And we have to push back on all sorts of assaults on our culture of liberty and understand that we are smart enough, we are rich enough as a nation, and we are aggressive enough in confronting challenges that we, in fact, can win this, and we can have an election in November that meets the confidence of those that were the results, meets the confidence test of the voting public.